You don't have to be an expert in everything, but having some knowledge, knowing what questions to ask, that's really key. It's a world now of continuous learning.
Hi, welcome to Radical Transformation, the show where we get up close and personal with the leaders transforming business today. I'm your host, Mike Swetman, and in this episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Nick Miesen, Global Head of Digital Operations at Henkel. Welcome to the show, Nick. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well here from Singapore.
Welcome. Just a few words on Nick. Nick joined Henkel in 2020 and has a 15-year plus experience operating at the coalface in multinationals, including AkzoNobel and Heineken, plus a startup he co-founded and scaled before joining Henkel. Nick's experience is pretty broad. It's been gained transformationally across R&D, innovation, operational excellence, and latterly digital. Nick also holds a PhD in aerospace engineering, an MSc in physics and astronomy, and is a certified master black belt, which is Lean Six Sigma. Nick, once again, welcome to the show. How are you? And can you tell our listeners, please, a little bit about Henkel and your current role?
Yes, thanks. Henkel is a German corporate now consisting out of two business units, Henkel Consumer Brands and Adhesive Technologies. I'm based in Adhesive Technologies, which is a leading manufacturer of adhesives, sealants, etc. And we are operating 124 production sites around the world. And now being based in Singapore, where I recently built a completely new team, digital operations, and out of Singapore, we are managing this new function to drive the complete digitalization of AO, which is our operations and supply chain organization.
Fantastic. It's a big job, isn't it, Nick?
It is. It's a great task at hand. I don't think we're the only manufacturing company trying to drive digital transformation, but I truly enjoy having such a big task.
You're right. You're not the only manufacturing company driving this type of transformation, but you're certainly doing it at a scale that most are not attempting across 124 sites. So not a small undertaking. And I know to do this, Nick, you've built a brand new, super talented team in Singapore. I believe you call them your Avengers, consisting of 8 different nationalities, many of whom are also, like you, expats, who perhaps new to the region, new to Henkel. And they've been drawn together to deliver this groundbreaking transformation, namely completely digitizing Henkel's adhesive technologies, operations and supply chain. So how's that going, Nick?
Team has settled in. I can say I think over 90% is based in Singapore, which is truly a huge advantage in the post-COVID time where working from home or working remote is becoming more the norm. But I think building a brand new team which enters a corporate environment, super helpful to have them nearby, really to do the team building. That's one. Obviously getting them to know Henkel a bit better, getting our strategy a bit better, and reshaping a little bit with the knowledge they're bringing in from outside. So I think the team has settled in now. What you do see, and again, that's for me still a positive thing, not everything is set in stone. Things are still crystallizing. Some parts of the strategy are being refreshed, revised, because the world of digital is changing so fast. And happy to say that the team is quite adapting to that. So we're now 8 months with the new team. Some of them just started under 6 months ago. But I dare to say we're landed, and with the refreshments going on, I truly believe we're going to deliver the value out of digital in the years to come.
Great. And Nick, just for our listeners, why did you pick Singapore to assemble this team? Why that location specifically? Couple
of reasons. I think starting with the main reason here, APAC as a region within our company, I think also within the industry, is a bit of ahead of the pack, talking about digital transformation, accepting new technologies. So we are here in the region where we can learn, where we can leverage the lessons from the past. Then Singapore being obviously the hub of Asia, centrally positioned, so that's very convenient. But then I think the other major reason here is the talent. The talent in the region, and specifically Singapore, on digital topics is there. So the market is there. We were able to attract them also. So I think those gave really fruitful grounds for setting up the team here.
Great, thank you. You were recently quoted in Henkel's Spotlight magazine that digital transformation is about people. It's a really clear message there. Digital transformation is about people. Tell our listeners why people are so important to driving the digitalization process within a factory, Nick.
It goes both ways, right? It goes top down, so to say. There's a receiving end of digital. There are people in the shop floor who are receiving new digital tools. It can be maintenance engineers, operators, quality control engineers, you name it. There's an abundance of people accepting the tool, and they need to accept the tool. So the receiving end remain people. I think that's one big topic. Then on the other hand, so more on the other side, you see that it's people who need to start working much more than they've done before. Why? There's so many different topics coming into play when dealing with digital. May it be functional expertise, technical expertise, then the whole change management comes into play. So there's so many aspects that you need to drive digital, or to develop the new tools, or to develop and drive the transformation, is that you have to work with all these different sets of people. So it's truly getting a different way of working with each other. And so from both ends, it's truly a people's challenge, the whole transformation.
Got it. Let's stick with that people theme for a moment. Big workforce, a lot of factories, some people I'd imagine who've been there a long, long time in some of your plants. And as you know, Nick, change isn't always easy to accept. What sort of strategies are you finding that are working well for you and your team when it comes to really engaging hearts and minds to make sure that you take people with you? Maybe some operators have been, in those positions a long, long time, because they could easily see the digitalization as a threat to their role, couldn't they? So what strategies, again, are you adopting to really make sure that you take them with you on that journey?
Well, almost basic change management, but what's in it for them, right? And so listening what their problems are, showing that digital is there to improve their daily lives, that we want to remove any repetitive task that they're having, opening up any room for creative thinking, creative tasks, something that digital won't be taking over for anytime soon yet, especially in the manufacturing environment. So I think that's a huge topic, listening to the people in the shop floor, or anywhere else in the organization who needs to accept this, right? So that's how you come to the solution. So it must be solution driven, never a technology push, right? There needs to be a reason why you're implementing digital, and you're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to increase efficiency or remove repetitive tasks. That's one. On the other hand, there's also really the safety aspect, right? You really want to offer a job that is safer to work with. So any technology that can support that, I think that's something we have to look into. There's also a graying workforce. The manufacturing industry is graying in general. It's getting harder and harder to get people in factory environments, in production. So looking into potential solutions, how to leverage the people with so much knowledge, because they have been working 30 years in the shop floor. How do you leverage that? So, and there are technologies coming to the market where we can have these people all working longer or working smarter. So I think for me, it's always been a technology opportunity to make people's life easier.
I've got it. You said a couple of interesting things there. Let me pick up on one of those, Nick. You said you're really leaning in and listening to the workforce to be able to capture how they feel. How are you doing that? Because it's easier said than done in practice, isn't it? How are you listening effectively? How are you capturing the mood?
I think you cannot get enough training on listening and voice of the customers, right? I mean, being trained as black belt, I think it's almost, again, 101, listening to your customer, identifying your customer. Okay, that being said, the way we've set ourselves up in terms of organization is that we installed something that is called value owners. So we have business value owners in the digital team. So that's how I always explain it, the natural counterpart of a product owner. Somebody who is able to connect the tool, build the tool, make sure that the supplier is being managed, the contract's being managed. That doesn't mean the tool is used in the right way, right? So having somebody extracting value from the tool was, in my opinion, a stepping stone in the organizational design. These are the people, in the reverse, are also the ears and eyes on the shop floor. And I hope in a year's time or in 2 years' time, we have many of these value owners, that we have people with the eyes and ears to translate problems into requirements and together with our digital business, DX, come up with the right solution. So having roles to translate shop floor problems into requirements, or making sure that we extract value from digital tools, that's how we set up the value owner role.
I've got it. I'm just trying to think, that value owner role, is that a bit like a green belt in other organizations where you're given a level of training, you have license to run projects, to do some analysis, to report back to a central team and where you see opportunities, or is it a bit more than that?
Well, it's a bit more than that, but setting the scene, giving you an insight in how I look at digital, I don't see it something else as Lean Six Sigma on steroids. We're trying to solve a problem. We're identifying a gap to be closed. We're measuring a baseline, and we're trying to improve it. And once we've improved it, that's the kickstart of continuous improvement, right? That's never the end of it. Mm-hmm. That there are an abundance of more tools than Lean Six Sigma was offering us, absolutely. So the mindset of, if not all people hired as value owner have a Lean Six Sigma background. So and the plus in the Lean Six Sigma is obviously also the data drivenness, right? So there are so many aspects that are relevant. So I will always say digital is nothing more than Lean Six Sigma on steroids, but having some knowledge on coding, having some knowledge on AI, be able to translate those tools from problem statements using those tools, that's obviously necessary. But it brings another point here. I mean, you can have all the certifications or education that you want, but it's a world now continuous learning. So the willingness to pick up all these new stuff is another feature. I don't want to say that's part of a black belt, yes or no, but able to digest all these new things that are coming to the table, that's really another asset.
I definitely think it's an evolution of that change agent role, isn't it, Nick? And you mentioned there coding and AI knowledge as well. That certainly didn't used to be a requirement in that change agent type role, but it very much is in your team now, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it is. And because we're setting at the baseline, so our strategy means we want to encourage all sites to be connected. We want to achieve an integrated manufacturing network, meaning one way or another, our manufacturing sites will be connected, because eventually we need a transparent supply chain. So we need to capture then the data from all of our processes. So step one, and that's a main focus now, is driving the deployment of several digital systems. That's just the beginning. Once we have that, that will generate lots of data. Then the big ticket items come in with analytics, advanced analytics, AI. But to do so, you need to standardize processes. Standardization, again, big chunk of Lean Six Sigma. But there's multiple things coming into play, because if the end goal is prescriptive or predictive operations, then you need to know a little bit on how data works, how you need to store it, where to store it, how to store it. So you don't have to be an expert in everything, but having some knowledge, knowing what questions to ask, I think that's really key.
Thanks, Nick. Can you tell our listeners a bit more about predictive, or you may call it prescriptive operations, and what that actually means? In reality, what's the vision there for Henkel around that?
So eventually our end goal should be that we're able to prescribe our operations, meaning we measure the input variables of all of our processes, understanding the variation of all these input variables, and with any algorithms, with prescriptive algorithms, we should be able to feed back a certain production loop or a feedback loop where we're able to understand the input based on historical data and make a prediction on the output. Maybe you want to pinpoint the output, so mass customization for any customers, or you want to make sure that with all the variance as a starting point, you still want to get the same output, meaning mass customization, mass standardization, I have to say. Mm-hmm. So those two aspects are for us the dot on the horizon. Reaching there's so many levels of potential improvement points, things that will deliver value. I mean, this is really skipping a couple of stations. Standardization is going to bring us value. Basic analytics is going to bring us value because we're going to make better decisions. So every station will have its own value topic, but then having that end goal in mind obviously helps us to guide in this massive world of digital manufacturing.
Got it. And I think there's one other thing there. Transparent operations also rely upon really good relationships with your supply chain, don't they? How are you addressing that? Because I'd imagine at Henkel you have a large number of committed suppliers in your supply chain, but how are you taking them on that journey with you?
So we have our supply chain organization is a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of digital transformation. They already are at least 2 years ahead of us. And we admitted that we are first focusing on operations, but we are connecting already our customers where we are digitizing our communications with them. So we are already on that journey, and looking to ourselves, we realize, well, first we do have to digitize our own operations before really reaching that integrated supply chain.
Got it. Just moving on a little bit back to the people element here and culture in particular. As a Dutch guy now operating in Asia, how are you learning to adapt culturally and get the best out of your multicultural team in Asia?
A very good question, and also an obvious one, being Dutch is one of the outskirts of the cultural balance sometimes. So being very aware of my own cultural profile, literally every day learning how another culture thinks or especially also how another culture reacts, and accepting you won't be able to copy another culture, because there's a reason why the Japanese and the Koreans have their saying things without saying, while the Dutch have their saying everything at once. There's a reason for it. So copying other cultures, I realize I shouldn't go there, but learning to understand each other, that's really where I every day learn from the team, and hopefully also vice versa. Accepting the differences, but also really embracing this diversity in thinking, because that's in the end where you want to go to.
And how do you promote that diversity of thinking? How do you make it within your team really comfortable for people to be able to come forward with new ideas, that innovation that you're seeking all the time?
So team is just forming, right? So I spent in the beginning a lot of time, at least for team building, but that was really on personal level, getting to know each other. How does the team look like? Now, in the months to come, I am starting several sessions where we're going to deep dive different profiles, cultural aspects, and how do we see each other and what can we expect from each other. So at least being open and explaining always my point of view, where I'm coming from. By now they know I'm kind of blunt. They know I'm a complete open book. I hardly can even give a hidden agenda. So being myself and in a consistent way helps them also to understand, okay, what's the Dutch guy doing now again? I mean, asking for opinions sometimes, well, it's kind of Dutch, but maybe it will work.
Yeah, it is kind of Dutch, but it isn't maybe offered in Asia, is it, in quite the same way? So yeah, no, very, very interesting.
Yeah, it is. And there's a book by an INSEAD professor called The Cultural Map. When I was reading it, I mean, even the Dutch are being put almost as a cartoon, how blunt we can be and how perceivingly negative we can be, but it's just that we're so open. But I thought, well, it's a pretty good idea to give the book at least to everyone as a starting point. Everyone realize I'm different, you're different, and these are the points where we might how you say that? Where we have to find each other. So the book explains 7 axes of cultural differences. May it be hierarchy, may it be time perception, may it be communication. So super interesting, and gave everyone the book, and it already started some interesting discussions. It's called Cultural Map.
It sounds a very useful read for anybody that's in your situation where they're forming a new team which is consists of many different nationalities and styles, and need to make it work quickly. Okay, let's get back to a more personal topic, and that is that last year you moved into a new job in a new continent and take on a new challenge. It's a big deal, but also you picked up and you moved your family with you. And I know you've got a couple of young boys. So I guess the question here is, what advice and guidance would you give to anyone thinking of relocating for that next exciting work challenge? And how are you taking your family on that journey with you? Because it's really critical, isn't it, that everyone's happy for this to work?
Absolutely. So it's already been 9 months, and I dare to say we're settled and everyone back home is happy, but it wasn't obviously always the case. And immigrating is hard. That's really something that I can say. Is it worth the while? Every minute of it. Few years back, I already realized having a dream, going abroad with a family I didn't have yet, but seeing some friends going to the States, one went to Switzerland, and you have to do it as a family. So the whole idea, almost irrelevant of your job, you have to do it with your family. You're in it together, and if some of them are not happy, you have to go back. I mean, everyone needs to be happy to make it a success, right? Irrelevant if your job is going well or not. It's making and having everyone happy in your family. So that being said, it's a great opportunity to spend a couple of years in Singapore, learn and build everything that I can do here, and that's really a privilege that's being offered. But then there's a wife whose career will be changed and, well, in our case, stopped. So lots of talking, and well, my wife knew me by now, and if I want something, it's okay, we have to talk about it. How does it look like? And all in all, obviously took her needs and desires along, but never realized that, by now they're 2 and 4. Last year they were 1 and 3. I never thought that the kids really would care where they are. I mean, as long as their father and mother are there, that will work out. But both of them really had trouble settling in, getting used to the new environment, obviously a new school, the tropics. It went on and on. So that was a tough beginning, and then you start realizing, well, these are also people. They have also their needs. So again, comes into play. Well, we have to make everyone happy. So not only listening to the needs of my wife, but also trying to identify the needs of a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old in the tropics. So now I really see that the boys are super happy here. I mean, what we can offer them doesn't even come close to what we can offer them back home in the Netherlands. Yes, those are grandparents over there and direct family, absolutely. But the attention that they get here in this environment, Singapore is built for families. So we get more time with the kids. The kids get more time and attention in school, always able to play outside. So gradually when you understand, okay, there needs to be some framework for them once it's there, as in school and a daily rhythm, I saw them getting happier and happier. And with my wife, there was, especially in the beginning, the trade-off. Well, after a few days, when you land here, you have to go to work. So I'm out, but she's stuck at home in a country that you don't understand. You don't know anyone. So at one point, there comes a trade-off. Do I spend my time doing my chores or spending time doing fun stuff with the family? And that's a trade-off. I never know again what the golden rule would be, but those are the things that you encounter when coming here. But all in all, after a few months, I really see that also my wife settled in, is happy. And as I said, the boys, I don't think I could give them anything better than that. And then that helps in, being happy yourself and settling in.
Fantastic. I'd imagine Henkel as well have been very helpful, haven't they, in terms of the support they've given you, not just professionally, but in terms of the family and being able to point and steer them in the right direction. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, the arrangement that we got, and therefore the life I can offer them here in Singapore, absolutely. It's absolutely great that Henkel develops their talents like this and offers them that. So I think that's great. I think the cherry on the cake is that you get a mentor appointed, and I'm super grateful. The relationship that I haven't met him a lot of times, but there are a few things that he says. So he spent also quite some years as expat, having a family, etc. So, and two things that my mentor mentioned, which was really a game changer: stop copying your previous life and enjoy all the new things that can come at your path. Because if you're trying to copy your life back home, it will never be the same. So there's always something to nag about, right? So and he said those things really at the right time. The other one was both my wife and I are very social, a lot of friends back home, and you start from scratch again here. And then you wonder, well, where do I settle in? How do I connect? And then he said, well, don't expect friendship that are the same as the friendships you have back home that lasted decades. I mean, simple things, but as starts you realizing, you take life as it comes. So getting this mentor relationship is, I think, also a game changer for me. And as I said, the whole package that Henkel's offering is absolutely great.
Fantastic. Nick, back to sort of transformation. When you left college, when you left school, I don't imagine they taught you too much about how to deliver transformation, let alone radical transformation at school, did they? So as a transformational professional, what have you learned since then, and how have you acquired that knowledge?
Yeah. Well, how do I acquire it? By failing a lot of time, walking into walls. Well, it's on a serious note, but also on a serious note, the energy that you need to bring, the sheer energy of not giving up, having a goal in mind, not taking no for an answer. I think that's one of the behaviors I was also looking into when interviewing for my team. I literally didn't ask them a single technical question. Most of them probably even know more about digital topics than I do, so I didn't even bother going into the digital topics. I need change agents, and change agents for me bring a certain energy or a click, and being, yeah, sure, you have to be smart, but can you talk to people? Can you convince people? Can you do that in different layers of the organization? And you learn that by doing. In AkzoNobel, I started my black belt journey or Lean Six Sigma career, whatever you want to call it. And you learn that data driven or making decisions based on facts is obviously very important. But being right and getting your way are very different things. That's also what you learn by doing. By having the facts on the table doesn't mean you get the right decision. So it's really about how you present these facts, or how you present yourself to a certain degree, and how you collaborate, and it goes so much further than just the hard facts of data. And it's about doing. I mean, change manager, I'm not even sure. Yeah, sure, you can read a lot of books, absolutely, but it's about doing and failing once in a while, and understanding what works well, what doesn't work well, and take that along while you're going.
Fantastic. I think you make some great points there around the energy, the resilience, the ability to take those knocks, and dust yourself down and get back up again. And that, even if you have the right answers, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get to the right end. So I think it's that a case of presentation of that shadow you leave, of the impact that you make, about building that credibility, which takes time, doesn't it? Particularly when you're new in post. Okay. What advice, Nick, would you give to any of our listeners who are being asked to step up, either for the first time or again, to lead and make a truly radical change in their organization as you are now? What advice would you give them?
Couple of things come to mind. Keep on learning, the willingness to learn. Never assume you know anything. So always have that interest to dive into new topics. That's one. When building a team, dare to hire people that are not in your comfort zone. Know that you need people that think differently, act differently, are different. I think that's something that is tough. That's also something where you need to invite other interviewers, getting not, people who think like me, we would get nowhere, right? So you need to have that diversity, and so dare to hire different, I would say. That's another one. If I could tell myself, I have to laugh. If I could tell myself 15 years ago, what would be the best advice? Be patient. Just in the last few years ago, I think it's a Chinese saying even. Now I'm really on thin ice with a lot of Chinese colleagues. But there's like the Chinese chair or something, so that you're just going to sit and wait. Sometimes doing nothing is literally the best thing. So kind of counterintuitive for somebody with high energy, doing stuff rather running into walls than wait. Sometimes you do have to trust the process and let things gradually come to a point where you say, now it's the moment to make that next step or make that decision. So change management also brings in, I think, patience.
Some really interesting things you said there around that learning, never assuming, anything or everything, not hiring people in your own mold, and patience. But that last point you make is really fascinating, Nick, about, when you want to go hard, when you want to run harder, actually sort of stopping sometimes and maybe waiting for others to catch up, or waiting for people to absorb before making the right decision that you want to guide them towards. Can you give us an example of where that's been the case at Henkel or elsewhere? Because I think there's a real skill to having that patience and, as you say, maybe sitting in that chair for longer than you might want to.
It was one of the clients that I've worked for during my startup, where I've actually learned this, where I saw the decision was crystal clear. And here comes the aspect also on how you bring it, right? The facts might be on the table. She taught me then how communication, easing it in, maybe bits and pieces of the fact, but not everything, and gradually spread the information around to different stakeholders, and gradually let it happen, where I thought, well, it's really a waste of time, but without really or letting anyone lose face or getting into any unnecessary argument, it gradually came to that point, the whole decision. And that's where I learned, maybe sometimes just wait and see what happens, and bits and pieces are on the table, and saving the time of a lot of arguments or fights, because a lot of topics will be sensitive. So yeah, it is a trick that I saw, without going into much detail, of course.
It sounds like an experience thing, doesn't it, Nick? That really knowing when to keep your powder dry and to pick the battles that you fight. And
as said, being super energetic, it's very counterintuitive. It's still something I'm learning. But hey, it's good to be aware of different ways of attacking something. Got
it. Conscious of time, I'm going to wrap up very shortly, but I have one more question, if that's okay, Nick. And that is, I'm really more an observation. I'm sure leading a global digital transformation program as you are now must be pretty full on and intense and tiring and draining. How do you step away from it, learn to breathe, and also gain, a different perspective, perhaps externally? How do you do that?
Well, being in a global role in Singapore basically means you could work 24/7 if you want to. Well, 24/5. I have a wife with a very strong opinion, so she will pull me out, if the ratio starts to change. What I've done is accepting work-life balance is not really a separation. I mean, accepting that it's integrated. I mean, sometimes there's a bit more time for work, sometimes there's a bit more time for family, knowing that I could spend all my time in work and I could spend all my time in family. And so I see it more integrated. Doing the things that I find important from a personal perspective or a private perspective, going out with friends or going out with my wife, going to do fun stuff with my kids, trying to play rugby as much as possible, going to the gym. A couple of things that are important to me in terms of letting my mind do something else than work. Having those set moments in a week really helps me to step back. And recently made a hard decision after 15 years to separate my work phone from my private phone. I always have had everything combined, so my whole life was in one phone. Now I deliberately can leave my work phone. So really, if we're on a holiday or whatever, I could check my email in the morning, but I'm not bringing it the whole day so that you're distracted by an email. As I said, I'm an open book. So an email can change the mood or can start me thinking. So I deliberately made the choice to separate my work from my private phone, which from an efficiency standpoint, I hate, because now you have two phones, but it really, really helps. I truly noticed it. Been recently on vacation, you really notice that you can put away your work phone, or on a Friday afternoon, you can put away your work phone. That's it. Europe can go on until 12 o'clock, but I'm having a beer, I'm going out for dinner or whatever, and I leave my work phone back home.
So a digital work detox.
Yes.
Wonderful. Nick, I've loved having you on the show. It must be late there in Singapore, and nearly the weekend. So I'm going to let you go and have a beer now. But thanks so much. Thrilled to have you on the show, and we'll be launching this episode very, very soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. It was my pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Bye.
Take care. Bye.